Jonathan Roumie donned the guise of an individual experiencing homelessness to ascertain how society truly treats the vulnerable. People's reactions will astound you. Before delving into this transformative narrative, kindly like this video and enable notifications so you don't miss our thought-provoking content. Now brace yourself for a profound lesson in humanity that will resonate deeply with your heart and mind. Thursday afternoon was serene in Manhattan's Washington Square Park. The pleasant autumnal temperatures drew families, tourists, and workers on their lunch breaks. Only the distant hum of New York City's bustling traffic and the occasional rustle of golden leaves disrupted the tranquility of the setting. Sunlight dappled through the century-old trees, casting patterns of light and shadow upon the historical park's stone pathways. Jonathan Roumie made a final adjustment to his appearance before commencing his social experiment. He had spent the entire morning meticulously preparing for this transformation. A faded, threadbare plaid shirt with strategically placed stains replaced his customary attire. Jeans with visible patches and holes at the knees, which he had artificially distressed, completed the ensemble. An old, dilapidated backpack, which appeared to have seen better days, rested beside his feet. He strategically selected a bench near the park's main entrance, where the flow of people was constant and varied. The location afforded maximum visibility, ensuring a diverse cross-section of individuals would pass by, hastening executives, families with children, inquisitive tourists, university students, and local residents. His 3-day stubble and a frayed baseball cap, its fabric worn at the edges, completed the physical transformation. No passerby would recognize the actor renowned globally for his portrayal of Jesus in the acclaimed series The Chosen. Jonathan had meticulously studied the gestures and body language of individuals experiencing vulnerability, observing how they positioned themselves in public spaces, how they eschewed excessive eye contact, and how they rendered themselves almost imperceptible within the urban throng. He placed a few humble possessions beside him, a half-empty water bottle with a peeling label, a piece of cardboard on which he had scrawled, "Any help is welcome" in shaky letters, and a scattering of coins in a small, cracked plastic container. A crumpled paper bag containing what appeared to be his sole possessions completed the tableau. His posture was that of someone world-weary, with shoulders slightly stooped and gaze frequently cast downwards. Yet his eyes remained vigilant, scrutinizing every reaction of passersby, mentally cataloging facial expressions, sudden detours, and the hushed comments people made as they walked past him. During the initial minutes, Jonathan observed a disturbing yet anticipated pattern. Most people simply ignored him completely, as if he were merely a fixture of the urban landscape. Some actively altered their course to avoid passing too close. Others conspicuously looked at their phones or in the opposite direction as they approached. But there were also poignant moments. An elderly lady made a point of depositing some coins into his container, offering a gentle smile. A young university student paused to inquire if he needed anything, exhibiting genuine concern. These positive interactions starkly contrasted with the negative ones, showcasing the broad spectrum of human reactions. The first patrol car appeared merely 25 minutes after his arrival at the bench. Jonathan was not surprised by the swiftness of the response. He knew that the presence of someone seemingly unhoused in a bustling area frequently drew complaints from other park patrons. 2 officers emerged from the vehicle, their expressions already betraying prejudice and irritation before they even approached. Officer Jessica Morgan was the first to speak, her rigid posture and authoritative voice slicing through the afternoon air. She was a woman in her 30s, with blonde hair pulled into an immaculate military bun and cold blue eyes that seemed to have already judged and condemned Jonathan before hearing his voice. "You can't sit there begging," she brusquely declared, without even inquiring what Jonathan was doing or if he was indeed soliciting money. "This place is for respectable families, not for vagrants who scare the children." Her partner, Tyler Brooks, remained a few paces behind, clearly uncomfortable with his colleague's blunt and prejudiced approach. Brooks was a man in his 40s, with salt and pepper hair at his temples and etched lines suggesting years of street-level experience. His body language evinced reluctance to engage with this particular approach. "Excuse me, officer," Jonathan responded calmly, raising his gaze with a respectful demeanor. "I'm not soliciting anything from anyone, I'm merely resting on this public bench after an arduous walk. His voice was clear and articulate, devoid of any signs of intoxication or mental instability that might warrant such an antagonistic approach. Oh, really? Morgan crossed her arms defensively, her posture growing even more aggressive. And these objects? This scattered array? This isn't your personal encampment. These are my personal effects, officer, Jonathan explained patiently, maintaining a respectful tone despite the palpable hostility. I see no issue whatsoever with having them with me while I rest. I'm not obstructing anyone's passage, nor causing any disturbance. Brooks finally intervened, attempting to de-escalate the situation with a slightly more nuanced approach. Look here, friend. We simply want to avert complications or complaints from other park patrons. Perhaps it would be advisable for you to seek alternative lodging, a shelter, or something of that nature. Jonathan remained seated, his hands calmly interlaced over his knees. His posture was that of someone accustomed to scrutiny and who had learned that deference was often the most prudent survival strategy. Complications, Officer Brooks? He inquired, perusing the name on the uniform. What kind of complications could I possibly cause by merely sitting here peacefully? Am I transgressing any specific statute? The question, posed respectfully yet clearly, exasperated Morgan demonstrably. She had not anticipated someone in his presumed station being so articulate or apprised of their rights. Don't try to get smart with me, she retorted antagonistically. People like you invariably perpetuate issues. Drugs, theft, disturbing the peace. It behooves you to cooperate before things genuinely escalate for you. The implicit menace in her words was palpable. Jonathan could discern the curious gazes of passersby who were beginning to halt and observe the interaction, some clearly discomfited by the unfolding scene. Identification now, Morgan demanded, her hand outstretched impatiently. I want to see valid identification, and I want to know precisely what your purpose is here. Jonathan deliberately hesitated for a few seconds before responding, noting how this brief interlude exacerbated the officer's annoyance. Miguel Santos, he stated, adopting a subtly crafted accent that might be interpreted as Hispanic. I am an American citizen, born in Los Angeles, California. Of course you are, Morgan scoffed, her tone steeped in sarcasm and barely disguised ethnic animosity. All of you say the same thing. Produce your identification and be quick about it. He slowly retrieved a well-worn wallet from his rear trouser pocket and presented the meticulously prepared document for the experiment. Morgan scrutinized it with overt distrust, obsessively cross-referencing the photograph with the man standing before her, as if anticipating some discrepancy that would validate her animosity. This photo looks rather old, she commented with suspicion. When precisely was it taken? And why do you look so different now? Several years ago, officer, Jonathan responded with a measured patience. People change over time, especially when life is difficult. Adverse circumstances can significantly alter one's physical presentation. Brooks watched the exchange with growing unease, perceiving that his partner was plainly overstepping the bounds of standard procedure and venturing into the realm of prejudice-driven harassment. Jess, he has valid identification, Brooks murmured under his breath. We haven't found anything amiss here. Perhaps we should proceed. Not yet, she murmured back, handing back the wallet with clear reluctance. But I'll keep a close watch on him. People of this sort invariably stir up trouble. Morgan pivoted towards Jonathan, her gaze deliberately menacing, attempting to cow him. Listen closely, Miguel Santos. I don't want to see you causing any trouble around here. This park is frequented by respectable families, industrious laborers, and tourists. This is no place for your kind to be loitering and disrupting the peace. I understand your concern for public safety, officer, Jonathan replied diplomatically, displaying more composure and eloquence than she had anticipated from someone in his ostensible predicament. However, I am merely availing myself of this public space, as any citizen is constitutionally entitled to do. The lucid, polite, and remarkably well-informed retort caught the officer off guard. She had expected to cow someone more compliant, less articulate, someone who would simply bow their head and discreetly withdraw. Jonathan's serene self-assurance disconcerted her, consequently exacerbating her irritation. After the officers grudgingly departed, Jonathan decided to relocate to a different bench, intending to continue gauging people's reactions and to ascertain if a change in his physical location would modify the treatment he received. He selected a spot adjacent to the central fountain, a common gathering point for families with young children, and where foot traffic was even more pronounced. He keenly observed how individuals reacted to his altered position. Some mothers instinctively drew their children closer, subtly guiding them further away as they passed him. Businessmen conspicuously averted their gaze, focusing intently on their mobile phones or staring resolutely in the opposite direction. Tourist groups subtly altered their trajectory to avoid an uncomfortably close proximity to him. It was then that Amy Mitchell, a 45-year-old elementary school teacher who had observed the entire preceding police encounter from a discreet distance, decided to intervene. She had been profoundly unsettled by what she had witnessed and found herself unable to simply overlook the palpable injustice. Amy approached circumspectly, clutching a shopping bag from the local grocer and embodying the kind of civic courage that has, regrettably, become a rarity in modern urban societies. "Pardon the intrusion," Amy began, pausing at a respectful yet sufficiently close distance to convey an absence of fear or prejudice. "I witnessed the recent interaction you had with the officers. That was utterly uncalled for and, frankly, disgraceful." Jonathan looked up, visibly taken aback by the unexpected kindness and unsolicited support. Throughout his acting career, particularly in his portrayal of Jesus, he had gained profound insights into human compassion. Yet to experience it so directly and personally touched him profoundly. "Thank you for your concern, ma'am," he replied with palpable sincerity. Not everyone would extend such a gesture. Most individuals prefer to simply avert their gaze and proceed with their day. "Every human being is entitled to fundamental respect and inherent dignity," she continued, her voice imbued with the fervent conviction of someone who truly believed in her words. "Regardless of one's financial standing, domicile, or attire, this should be self-evident to any minimally civilized individual." Amy opened her bag and produced a foil-wrapped sandwich, still fresh from the deli where she'd had lunch. "I was saving this for an afternoon snack, but I'd very much like you to have it. And please don't feel obligated to accept if you'd rather not." Jonathan was genuinely touched by the spontaneous gesture of kindness. In his life as a successful actor, he was accustomed to calculated courtesies and superficial interactions. This authentic display of compassion moved him in a way he hadn't anticipated. "You really don't have to do this," he said, his voice imbued with genuine emotion. "But I deeply appreciate the kindness. Gestures like this restore my faith in humanity." "Of course I have to do this," Amy gently insisted. "It's how we build a better, more equitable, and compassionate society. One act of kindness at a time. If every person with the capacity to help did something, however small, we could address countless societal issues." She paused, looking around the park with a pensive expression. "You know, when I was a child, my mother always told me that the true measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can do something for them, but how they treat those who can offer nothing in return." Shortly after Amy departed, promising to return to check on Jonathan's well-being, a group of 4 executives in expensive suits appeared, clearly emerging from a protracted business luncheon at some upscale establishment in the vicinity. They carried Italian leather briefcases, spoke loudly into state-of-the-art smartphones, and exuded the sort of hubris often concomitant with financial success. The first among them, a corpulent man in his 50s with a gleaming Swiss timepiece that likely cost more than many people's annual salary, noticed Jonathan on the bench and contorted his face into an exaggerated grimace of disgust. "It's astounding how the city administration permits this sort of spectacle in broad daylight," he commented loudly to his colleagues, clearly unconcerned whether Jonathan overheard him. "What utter degradation. This park used to be a respectable locale." A woman from the group, clad in an impeccable Armani suit and clutching a Hermes handbag, nodded her head in dramatic assent. "Exactly what I was thinking, Richard. The city administration should undertake a thorough cleansing of this area. This sort of presence deters serious investors, high-caliber tourists, and reputable families. It is foundational to the region's economic development." A third executive, younger but equally arrogant and clad in a suit that betrayed his aspiration to impress his senior colleagues, chortled maliciously as he typed something on his phone. "He's likely here to bilk easy money from the unsuspecting tourist passing through," he remarked, surreptitiously snapping a photo of Jonathan. It's the classic stratagem of these societal leeches. They know precisely where to position themselves to leverage sympathy for maximum gain. Or worse still, added the fourth member of the group, an older woman with a particularly stern countenance. He could be orchestrating some type of crime, observing people's movements, identifying soft targets. These individuals have absolutely nothing to lose, which renders them unpredictable and dangerous. Amy Mitchell, who had decided to remain in the vicinity to discreetly observe how others would interact with Jonathan, found it impossible to hold her tongue in the face of such scathing and prejudiced remarks. "You are speaking about a human being," she bravely interjected, approaching the group with resolve, and doing so right in front of him, as if he were invisible or utterly devoid of feelings. The executive with the Swiss watch turned to her with thinly veiled disdain, clearly irked by the interruption. "Madam, this genuinely does not concern you," he replied patronizingly. "We are merely articulating our valid and substantiated concerns regarding public safety and the economic development of this area." "Valid concerns?" Amy retorted, her voice gaining traction. "Or merely unadulterated prejudice cloaked as civic responsibility?" "Prejudice?" The woman in the Armani suit replied, incensed, as if the accusation were preposterous. "We work diligently for our money. We contribute significantly to the economy through taxes and investments. We are entitled to public spaces that are clean, secure, and commensurate with our socio-economic standing." "And does he not possess the same constitutional rights?" Amy inquired, subtly gesturing towards Jonathan. "Why do you automatically presume he is dangerous, criminal, or undeserving of being here?" The younger executive scoffed sarcastically. "Please, madam, just look at him, his appearance, his possessions, the entire tableau." It was patently clear what kind of person he was and what sort of trouble he could stir up. Precisely at that moment, the police cruiser returned to the park. Morgan and Brooks alighted from the vehicle, this time radiating renewed vigor and palpable determination. Apparently, Officer Morgan had spent the intervening period since their last encounter ruminating on the interaction and deciding that she needed to reassert control over the situation. "Well, well, look who decided to disregard our admonition and return to the very same spot," Morgan declared, striding purposefully towards Jonathan. "I made it unequivocally clear I'd be keeping a close watch, and here we are once more." Morgan grasped her radio with deliberately ostentatious movements, clearly attempting to assert her authority for the benefit of both Jonathan and the burgeoning crowd of onlookers. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I require a comprehensive and detailed system check for Miguel Santos, identity previously furnished during the prior interaction. I want criminal history, outstanding warrants, everything you've got." Brooks let out a deep sigh, knowing his partner was vastly overstepping her mandate and venturing into the realm of unwarranted harassment. "Morgan, he hasn't done a single thing amiss since our last interaction," he murmured, attempting to speak low enough for only her to apprehend. "You're chasing phantoms and fabricating issues where none exist." "Let me conduct my duties as I deem appropriate," she retorted irritably, her gaze unwavering on Jonathan as she awaited the central system's response. "Police instinct isn't something taught in the academy. You either possess it or you don't." The executives observed the scene with renewed fascination, some exchanging whispered remarks of approval regarding the appropriate police action being undertaken. The radio crackled several minutes later, shattering the escalating tension in the air. "Unit 23, this is dispatch. We've conducted a comprehensive system search for Miguel Santos using the previously provided information. Result: no corresponding record found for the identification. The identity may be incorrect. There could be a typographical error or a temporary system malfunction." Morgan's eyes literally gleamed with satisfaction and triumph, as if she had just secured a significant prize. "I knew it," she exclaimed, loud enough for all nearby to overhear. "False identity. We now possess a robust legal foundation for a considerably more in-depth investigation and potentially an arrest. Jonathan carefully preserved his equanimity, but was acutely aware that the impending revelation was drawing near. The experiment had progressed precisely as he had anticipated. Perhaps the system is experiencing temporary technical difficulties, he calmly suggested, maintaining the same deferential tone he had employed throughout their interaction. Technology is not infallible, and governmental systems are notoriously unreliable. Or perhaps you are a compulsive liar using forged documents, Morgan aggressively retorted, and now I am going to ascertain precisely who you truly are and what you are concealing. Amy attempted to intervene again, her civic courage manifesting itself once more. Officers, even if there is some technical issue with the documentation, that does not justify the hostile and discriminatory treatment you are meting out to this man. Where is the presumption of innocence that purportedly protects all American citizens? And where is our obligation to maintain public order and protect honest citizens? Morgan shot back aggressively, clearly losing her patience with outside interference. Individuals with false or questionable identities represent a significant potential risk to the entire community. The situation was escalating dangerously. Morgan moved even closer to Jonathan, her hand resting menacingly on the baton at her belt, in a clear display of physical intimidation. "Stand up immediately," she commanded loudly, drawing even more attention from passersby. "We will resolve this matter at the precinct, where we can conduct a proper investigation." "On what legal grounds, officer?" Jonathan calmly inquired, demonstrating knowledge of his rights in a manner that both surprised and further exasperated the officer. "Since when is sitting peacefully on a public bench a crime?" "Using a false identity is a serious federal offense," Morgan snapped, her voice rising in volume. "And resisting arrest is also a crime. Do not test my patience further." "Resisting arrest?" Amy interjected swiftly, pulling out her cell phone. "He hasn't even moved from the bench. I am recording all of this to document what is transpiring here." Brooks finally decided to take a firmer stance, realizing that the situation was spiraling completely out of control. "That's enough, Morgan. You are clearly overstepping all professional and legal boundaries. We lack solid legal grounds for an arrest predicated solely on a potential system malfunction." "Oh, yes, we do," she shrieked, utterly shedding any pretense of professional restraint. "False identity, suspicious conduct, disturbing the peace, resisting law enforcement authority." More individuals began to congregate and witness the scene unfold, a significant number capturing images and footage with their phones. Some voiced overt disapproval of the police conduct, while others appeared to condone the more assertive intervention. Jonathan discerned that the experiment had elucidated precisely what he sought to illustrate: how systemic bias operates, how authority can be wielded unjustly, and how individuals in precarious circumstances are subjected to inhumane treatment. It was time to terminate the pretense. "Officer Morgan, Officer Brooks," he stated, slowly ascending from the bench. "I believe you'll want to see something quite crucial before undertaking any additional measures." Jonathan withdrew a state-of-the-art smartphone from the interior pocket of his dilapidated jacket, a device that stood in stark contrast to his outward demeanor. The alteration in his bearing was subtle yet discernible. Suddenly, he exuded an innate confidence in an aura that had hitherto been meticulously concealed. "Over the preceding 2 hours and 40 minutes, he commenced, his voice now lucid, authoritative, and utterly transmuted. "Everything that has transpired here in this park has been live-streamed across multiple social media platforms to over 300,000 individuals in real time." Morgan furrowed her brow, bewildered and yet to fully apprehend the gravity of the unfolding situation. "To what precisely are you referring? What charade are you attempting to perpetrate now?" Jonathan pivoted the phone's display for all to plainly observe. The live feed depicted precisely the tableau they were currently experiencing, with viewer commentary scrolling rapidly along the side of the screen. The viewership figures continued to escalate moment by moment. "My actual name is not Miguel Santos," he calmly divulged, allowing the revelation to permeate. "I am Jonathan Roumie, and this entire undertaking was a meticulously orchestrated social experiment designed to ascertain and chronicle how our society addresses individuals in seemingly vulnerable circumstances. Morgan's countenance drained of all color instantaneously. Brooks took several steps back, visibly aghast at the revelation. Amy covered her mouth with her hands, taken aback but also impressed. The executives who had made derogatory remarks began to murmur nervously amongst themselves. "Jonathan Roumie?" Brooks murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "The actor from The Chosen? The Jesus from the show?" "Exactly," Jonathan confirmed, his presence now utterly transformed. "And over the past few hours, you have demonstrated to hundreds of thousands of people online precisely how some law enforcement representatives treat those they deem inferior or undesirable." The full realization of what had transpired began to strike Morgan like a devastating avalanche. She started shaking her head in desperate denial. "This is a trap, an elaborate setup. You can't do this to us. This has to be illegal somehow." "On the contrary," Jonathan responded with utter composure, "recording in public spaces is perfectly legal in all 50 states, and I did not force you to act in a certain way. I did not put words in your mouths, nor did I influence your actions. I merely revealed who you truly are when you believed no one of consequence is observing." He paused, allowing his words to be fully absorbed by all present. "Every word you uttered, every action you took, every expression of prejudice you displayed, it was all authentic. It all emanated from within you." The realization of what had transpired, and more importantly, what was unfolding in real time before hundreds of thousands of viewers, began to engulf Morgan like an avalanche. Her career, her reputation, possibly her entire life was publicly unraveling before a massive audience. Within a matter of minutes, a significant crowd began to gather around the scene. People who had been watching the live stream from their homes, offices, and other locations had shared the location across social media, and curious onlookers began to arrive in increasing numbers. Local news vans arrived with striking speed, their broadcast antennae already raised and cameras swiftly positioned. The number of online viewers had surged to over 500,000, with comments pouring in so rapidly they were virtually impossible to track. Hashtags pertaining to the experiment began surfacing on Twitter's trending topics, and the video was undergoing exponential dissemination. Amy's gaze shifted alternately between Jonathan and her own phone, still processing the sheer magnitude of the revelation and its far-reaching ramifications. "I simply cannot believe it," she uttered, her voice a blend of awe and profound shock. "You orchestrated all of this to underscore a crucial point about systemic discrimination and entrenched prejudice within our society. And it functioned flawlessly," Jonathan retorted, gesturing toward the burgeoning crowd. "All of you witnessed firsthand, entirely devoid of filters or editing, precisely how some individuals comport themselves towards those they deem inferior based solely on superficial appearance and perceived socioeconomic status." Morgan was visibly spiraling into a state of acute panic, fully comprehending that her actions were being observed, scrutinized, and likely recorded by hundreds of thousands of individuals in real time, with repercussions that would inevitably extend far beyond this immediate juncture. "This will utterly obliterate my career," she murmured, her voice fraught with trepidation. "My family will witness this. My colleagues, my superiors, everyone will see it. This will undeniably haunt me for the remainder of my life." Perhaps you should have contemplated these severe ramifications prior to treating a fellow human being with such flagrant disregard for basic respect and dignity, a firm, authoritative voice articulated from directly behind her. They all turned to behold a middle-aged man in a dark suit approaching with resolute strides. His badge and commanding demeanor immediately identified him as someone holding a position of considerable, indeed high, authority. The badge emblazoned prominently on his chest identified him as Captain Robert Hayes of the New York Police Department's Internal Affairs Bureau. "Officer Morgan," Captain Hayes intoned, his voice imbued with the full, unwavering authority of his 25 years of service and an unblemished reputation for unimpeachable integrity. "I have been observing the live broadcast alongside approximately 600,000 other individuals, including the police commissioner and numerous other senior officers. I require you to surrender your badge and weapon immediately." Morgan was now visibly convulsing with tremors, the full, stark reality of the situation finally registering with profound clarity in her mind. "Captain, I can explain all of this," she pleaded desperately, her voice quivering with desperation. "I was merely endeavoring to perform my duties, maintaining public order, safeguarding respectable citizens." "Silence," he interjected firmly. "I have observed every single second of this interaction. I witnessed how you treated this citizen based solely on personal biases. I observed your systematic abuse of authority. I witnessed your disregard for standard procedures and fundamental human rights protocols. This is not upholding law and order. It is institutionalized discrimination and an egregious abuse of power." Hayes turned to Brooks, his expression slightly less severe, but still grave. "Officer Brooks, while you did not actively participate in the discrimination, you repeatedly failed to intervene adequately when your partner clearly overstepped all professional and legal boundaries. Your inaction in the face of misconduct will also be thoroughly investigated." Brooks nodded, evidently mortified by his inaction and understanding that his career would also face repercussions. The captain then addressed Jonathan with marked respect and deference. "Mr. Roumie, on behalf of the entire New York Police Department, I offer my most profound and unreserved apologies for the utterly unacceptable treatment you received today. I want to make it unequivocally clear that this does not represent the values we strive to teach and instill in our officers." Jonathan nodded graciously, his demeanor now completely transformed. "Captain Hayes, it is my sincere hope that this serves as a pivotal moment of learning and reflection, not just for these specific officers, but for all of us regarding how we treat our fellow human beings, especially those in vulnerable circumstances." The crowd that had gathered, now numbering over 200 individuals, began to applaud spontaneously. The sound was deafening, a blend of approval, relief, and validation that reverberated throughout the park. Morgan was escorted to a different patrol vehicle, her shoulders slumped in defeat and humiliation. Her hands visibly trembled as she surrendered her badge and service weapon, symbols of a career that had just ended abruptly. News cameras captured every nuance of her expression, documenting her downfall in real time. Brooks was also led away for questioning, albeit with slightly less stringent treatment due to his less aggressive demeanor during the events. Meanwhile, reporters from various outlets began interviewing witnesses and onlookers. Amy Mitchell was among the first to be approached by journalists. "What did you witness here today?" a reporter inquired. "I witnessed systematic discrimination and abuse of power," Amy clearly replied. "But I also witnessed something extraordinary. Someone brave enough to expose these injustices in a way that cannot be denied or rationalized." The executives who had made disparaging remarks subtly tried to distance themselves from the area, clearly concerned that their own words and actions might have professional repercussions. Some attempted to cover their faces upon realizing they had also been filmed making prejudiced comments. Jonathan was surrounded by journalists, but he maintained his composure and seized the opportunity to elaborate on the important messages of his experiment. "This experiment was not about humiliating specific individuals," he explained to the cameras. "It was about exposing systematic issues in how our society treats people based on appearance, perceived socioeconomic status, and unconscious biases." A reporter inquired, "Mr. Roumie, what motivated you to conduct this specific experiment?" "As an actor who has had the privilege of portraying Jesus Christ, I have learned profoundly about compassion, human dignity, and how we ought to treat the most vulnerable among us," Jonathan replied. "But I wanted to see for myself how these values are truly applied in our modern society." Another reporter pressed, "What message do you hope people take away from this experience?" "That every human being, regardless of their appearance, financial situation, or life circumstances, deserves to be treated with basic dignity and respect," Jonathan stated, his voice imbued with genuine emotion, "and that we all have a responsibility to question our own biases and advocate for those who cannot defend themselves." As the crowd and news teams gradually began to disperse, Jonathan remained in the park for a while longer, reflecting on the day's events and personally interacting with people who approached him to share their own experiences with discrimination and prejudice. Amy approached him once more, this time with tears in her eyes. "What you did today was incredibly courageous and necessary," she said, her voice brimming with emotion. "I sincerely hope this truly changes something, that it makes people pause and reflect before judging other human beings. True change always begins with awareness and self-reflection," Jonathan replied. And today, over 500,000 people witnessed firsthand how prejudice operates within our society, how it can be subtle yet devastating, and how we all bear the responsibility to confront it. He returned to the bench where it all began, that very seat that had served as the stage for so much discrimination and revelation. He retrieved a pen from his pocket and a small piece of paper he had prepared in advance. With careful, deliberate movements, he penned a message he knew would be read by many in the days and weeks to come. Human dignity does not hinge on one's bank account, appearance, or circumstances. Everyone deserves respect. Treat one another with compassion. He carefully folded the paper and discreetly tucked it beneath a loose plank of the bench, where it would be discovered by future visitors. For the next person who sits here and needs a reminder of their inherent worth as a human being, he explained to Amy, who observed the gesture with admiration. A sleek black SUV slowly approached, and a young assistant descended to open the door for Jonathan. Before entering the vehicle, he made sure to personally greet several people who still remained in the area, especially thanking those who had demonstrated kindness throughout the experiment. "Thank you for reminding me that truly good people still exist in the world," he told Amy before entering the vehicle. "People like you are the reason I still hold out hope for humanity." Jonathan Roumie's experiment serves as a powerful and essential reminder that the true measure of a civilized society is not how it treats its most powerful, influential, or successful citizens, but rather how it treats its most vulnerable, marginalized, and needy members. And it boldly challenges us to examine our own hearts, minds, and behaviors, honestly asking ourselves, how would I treat someone if I thought no one important was observing? How would I react if I witnessed injustice? Would I have the courage to intervene? So, what are your thoughts on this transformative experience? Which moment in this story resonated with you most emotionally? How do you think you would have reacted if you were in the shoes of Amy, the police officers, the executives, or even as a passerby observing? Have you ever encountered analogous situations in your own lives? How did you respond? Please share your reflections in the comments below. And should this narrative have prompted you to delve deeply into your own unconscious biases and the manner in which you treat others in your daily interactions? Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content that challenges, inspires, and facilitates our journey toward becoming the finest versions of ourselves. Until the next story, always remember, every individual we meet is engaged in a struggle that remains unknown and imperfectly understood by us. Always opt for kindness, compassion, and human dignity.